Welcome to Unlocking Vulnerability, the podcast that explores what vulnerability really looks like in everyday life. I'm Helen, and in each episode I'm joined by a different guest who'll bring their unique insight and perspectives from across the vulnerability space. We'll discuss the realities behind vulnerability and what it takes to respond when people need additional support. We're glad to have you here, so grab a cup of tea and let's get started. Welcome back to Unlocking Vulnerability with me, Helen. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Natasha Crooks, who is the Vulnerable Customer Manager at Northern Ireland Electricity Networks. Hello Natasha, it's wonderful to have you on the podcast.
Hello Helen, thanks so much for inviting me along.
You're welcome. I'm looking forward to our discussion and see what thoughts come out from what you want to share with us. So before we get going into the conversation, do you want to start by just giving us an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Natasha Crooks, and as Helen said, I'm the Vulnerable Customer Manager at NIE Networks. So NIE Networks, we're the distribution network operator for Northern Ireland, which is a fancy way of saying we're the electricity network. So we're the people in charge of getting the supply on to people's houses and keeping it on, and supporting customers whichever way we need throughout any queries they'll have around the electricity network, whether it be during power outages, connections to new homes, or just queries about the equipment that's on the network there.
Brilliant, fantastic. And I'm looking forward to you sharing some insights of the energy sector, but also for what's happening in Northern Ireland. So I know that we're going to have some good thoughts there. So as you know, Helen Pettifer training is 10 years old this year. So it's a really sort of a fantastic milestone, but it's also just a good way to sort of pause and see what's happened over the last 10 years within the vulnerability space, because there has been significant progress in regulated industries, but also just in firms and their behaviours. So how has your understanding of vulnerability changed, both in the energy sector and in Northern Ireland over the last few years? What changes have you seen?
Yeah, so we're governed by our utility regulator. They would be the people that look after us. So vulnerability isn't a new thing to NIE Networks or the energy sector at all in Northern Ireland. It's something we've always considered and have tried to take into consideration during any works we do or anything that we might have an impact on customers through anything that we're working on at the moment. I think there was maybe a focus more so on, at least for NIE Networks, on vulnerability in terms of people with medical equipment, because that would sort of be people we would have more of an impact on, we would have thought. In the likes of a power outage, people with electric beds that are on oxygen, those types of things. And those are all still a really big part of the customers that we look after and the people that we would speak to on a daily basis. But the regulator came out a couple of years ago with an expanded version of what a vulnerable customer is, which is anybody whose circumstances mean they're at more risk of harm, especially when dealing with firms, they would be classed as a vulnerable customer. So as I say, it's not anything new or nothing that we haven't considered before, but it's sort of pushed everything like that to the forefront to say, look, yes, people on medical equipment are vulnerable and we need to look after them in the best way we can. But we also need to think about maybe the less obvious vulnerabilities, the likes of people with neurodivergence, the likes of people in financial hardship, those types of things. So there has been a real big emphasis across Northern Ireland and the utility sector and probably all the sectors in general, just to say, look, what you're doing is good, but we need to expand on that. We maybe need to tailor our services, our websites, how customers can communicate with us, just to make sure everything's working the right way for as many people as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is about really understanding what people are going through, isn't it, and how it might be impacting them. And yeah, you're absolutely right, across all sectors that definition, that understanding of vulnerability has really broadened, and it's no longer sort of historically what we would have considered vulnerability. So people who are older, physical disabilities, mental health disabilities, it is so much more than that.
Broad. And there's what we find is, I think sometimes we hear that we need to look after all this range of vulnerabilities, and sometimes we think, oh, we need to do 101 things. They're going to require all these changes. They're going to cost all this money. But what we find is that a lot of the time it's just really simple tweaks that we need to make to our services, and that can make all the difference for people. So that's the type of things that we've been seeing and trying to improve upon over the last while.
Brilliant, brilliant. And hopefully you'll be able to share some of those sort of
Yes.
cost-effective ways with
Yes.
the listeners today. Because you're absolutely right. I think a lot of firms sort of they look at vulnerability, they look at what the regulators are expecting of them, and then they kind of almost panic and say, oh my gosh, this is going to be a lot of time, a lot of resources, human resources, financial resources. And actually, yeah, you're very right. It's often those smaller tweaks, even just somebody on the phone, just being kind, taking the time, explaining things in an easier way so that somebody who is already overwhelmed or perhaps English isn't the first language, that they have that opportunity to just process all that information. So yeah, a lot of it is just obviously cost effective ways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. So with regards sort of vulnerable customers and your journey, particularly at NIE, what's happened over the years and what does that journey look like for you as an organization? You mentioned a few bits there.
Yeah, so as I said, it's something we've always considered. It's always been a big part of what we do across the organization. We've always had a medical customer care register so that we can easily identify customers that need that sort of extra support. We're expanding that at the minute. So instead of a medical customer care register, it's now just a customer care register for anybody with any vulnerabilities, just so if they do give us a phone or send us a message, an email, whenever we pull up their details, we can see at first look, oh, there's something that I need to be aware of here. I might need to change the way I approach this. Um, so customers can sign up to that in many different ways, and it's all the information's available across our website and everything. So that's certainly something that we've tried to change with the change definition and other things. We've also introduced about a year and a half ago now, coming up to 2 years, a dedicated vulnerable customer team, which is the team that I look after, which I think is a really good step to do for any organization. Um, we found that the people in our contact centers, we've got them all trained up to deal with a variety of vulnerabilities, and they're great. They can do that. But sometimes having a team that can take as much time as needed to deal with a case, to deal with a customer, to tailor it into a way that they need specifically has really helped us. The team of really good, strong agents in that team that are really happy to help anybody, happy to take the time, happy to do things a slightly different way just to make it easier for people. So having that team there is, we think, has really made a difference for customers. Um, Not even just customers, I suppose, with our colleagues, having that team there has been a really good resource. It's a point that we have all over our internal website, all over our comms, and our briefs that we put out all the time to say if you need help with a customer and you're not sure what to do, this is who you can reach out to. So it's made things easier for them too, because they know I don't have to come up with all the answers here. There's a team here that's trained up on this, can research it, can get the sort of support that's needed here. Um, Off the back of introducing the team, we also introduced a vulnerable customer champions group across the organisation, which I chair every 6 weeks. And I love meeting this group every time that we meet. We've got representation in that group from basically every customer facing department that we have. So it's the likes of people in my team, the likes of our contact centre and our complaints department, but it's also our meter readers, it's our planning engineers, people in our admin teams, and that's only to name a few of them. Um, I think what we did really well with that too is we asked when we started that department or that champions group for volunteers that really had an interest in doing that. Instead of saying, right, we need a list of people, get us people, telling them they're doing that and they're going to be part of this group. We asked, yes, can we get people in that really have an interest and want to bring their ideas forward, bring their queries forward, and then they act as sort of a bridge between my team and their own departments. So any updates we give, any new services that we've brought in, they're sort of like the point in between us and their department so they can share that round. So we find that really, really beneficial as an organisation. I suppose as well, a few other things we've been doing is working with some of our partners and local organisations to try and bring some feedback into what we're doing. The likes of the Jam card that we have here in Northern Ireland, we've been a partner with for a long time, and it's a relationship we really value and are trying to get the most out of every year. So for anyone that doesn't know, JAM card stands for just a minute. So it's to let firms know that a person may have a neurodivergence or any sort of slightly more hidden disability that maybe wouldn't be as obvious as first. Whenever they show that they have a JAM card or tell you they have a JAM card, it means that we know that they'll need just an extra minute of our time to help them. So they're a wonderful organisation we've worked with. We've also started over the last year or two working quite closely with one of our local charities here called Disability Action. So they've been really great. They've been able to get us set up feedback sessions with some of their clients. So for the likes of our vulnerable customer strategy, which we're going to be launching here soon, a new version in the next month, we hope. We brought that along with us when we were designing it and showed it directly to the customers that we're intending to view it and say, right, this is what we've got. Is this going to work for you? And by taking on their feedback, we were able to say, right, this is good, but this needs changed. This wording doesn't make sense to people that don't work in the electricity sector. We need to change that. So by using all those partnerships and working with charities, we have learned so much, and the feedback we get from them is invaluable, really. Really is.
Wow. A lot there that you've achieved over the last few
Yeah.
years. That's
But
absolutely
we've been busy,
fantastic.
Helen. We've been
I was going to
busy.
say you've been incredibly busy, I know, and you have really built a fantastic team around you. Every single one of your team members are, genuinely want to support, and they're really sort of kind and empathetic people. So it's brilliant. And when I first heard about the Jam card, gosh, I'm thinking sort of well, maybe 7, 8 years ago when I first heard about the Jam card, I thought, what a brilliant tool. People
Yeah.
can have that because obviously it can also work quite closely with the sunflower lanyard, but it is just a way of just sort of saying, actually, just give me a minute, just let me catch my breath, let me just put my wallet away, let me just process that information. So it's a great way of just giving people that the control that they need to just take their time in that situation. Yeah.
And I love about it, probably not really for my role because I'm more office based, but for our meter readers and our site workers, customers, if they don't want to have to explain their circumstances with the Jam card, they can just show it.
Yeah.
And because our teams are all trained, they immediately know, right, okay, this is this customer's situation.
Yeah.
What can I do to make it easier? So they
Yeah.
don't have, customer doesn't want to go into all their details. They don't
No,
have to.
no.
Really, really useful.
Yeah. And I love the fact that, it's all they have to do is show it. They don't have to explain because it's tiring. It's exhausting just having to explain the same thing again. They might not even be able to articulate exactly
Mhm.
what they need. So yeah, that's brilliant. Brilliant. And then you obviously mentioned your strategy, and I love the idea that you've had the customer's input as well in that. I think that's powerful. The voice of the customer is powerful, isn't it? So can you share more about what that strategy looks like and how it can better support your customers?
Absolutely, yes. So we've looked at our previous strategy, so that expired this year. So we knew we had to come up with a new one. So we've really taken what we had in the old one, reviewed it, saying, right, what do we still offer? What have we improved upon? And let's put this into this. And what new services have we offered that we maybe haven't broadcast yet to the public to make them aware of this? So our strategy is basically laying out if you're a customer that has a vulnerability, this is the services that we offer. This is how we can tailor our services to you. And they are very broad. It can be from the likes of if you need to be on our customer care register, if your power goes off, this is what we'll do. If the meter reader calls and you're needing extra time to come to the door, this is what we can do for you. Those types of things. Um, and again, that feedback session from Disability Action really did change the way we've done it. Our last strategy, we sort of felt like, right, let's detail everything. Let's tell them exactly what we do and really explain it in great detail. But the feedback session we had was for this particular group of people anyway, if they saw that, they wouldn't want to interact with it. It was too wordy, it was too jargony, it was too much, it was information overload. So what we've decided to do this time is a two-pager. One page is what we offer, and another page is very short, snappy sentences about this is what we offer and this is what this means. It's bright, it's colourful, it's more like a pamphlet rather than a whole big document that someone
Yes.
would have to read. So I really love the way that it's turned out. As I said, hopefully we're going to be releasing it soon. But I think having that shorter, snappier, brighter version that customers can read is a lot handier. And then the rest of the information, if they want to read more about it, is already on our website. So there is that, and there is that option to go and read more into it.
Mm.
But the actual strategy leaflet itself is a short, quick thing that you can flick through and see exactly what we offer. There's all of our contact information clearly printed on it as well. So customers can see if they want to phone us, this is the number. You want to WhatsApp us, this is the message number. You want to email my team directly, this is this. So all the
Brilliant.
information is there, but just really streamlined.
Mm.
So we're looking forward to releasing that
Yes.
in weeks.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That really is fantastic. And you're absolutely right. Just actually just shortening documents, changing the wording, making it vibrant, engaging. But people are overwhelmed. People are busy with life. But they don't have time to read, long pages of documents. We
Absolutely
struggle
not.
with policies and summaries and terms and conditions. So
No,
yeah, the simpler you can keep it, the more powerful it's going to be. Completely agree. Yeah. Brilliant. Oh, well, I'd love to see a copy of that when it comes out. And
absolutely,
yeah,
Helen.
will it be on the website then? Can we
It'll be
direct?
posted on our
Yeah,
website.
brilliant. So we'll direct the
HR comes
listeners
and
there.
says exactly how we're gonna broadcast it. But yeah, it'll all be
Mm,
on our website, and then there's a lot of
brilliant.
information there as well for people that need it or would like
Yeah,
to read.
fantastic. Because that could be a great tool for other firms to look at and just think, actually, yeah, how can we make information more engaging and relevant? Yeah, brilliant. So some great work there. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Um, and obviously you're in Northern Ireland, so it would be really interesting to hear what circumstances, what experiences customers over there are having, especially over the last few years. Since COVID, as you mentioned earlier, vulnerability, our definition of vulnerability has broadened. But what are you seeing in the customers there with regards sort of what they've got going on in their lives? And sort of, is that very different to what we might be seeing over here, or rather similarities?
Yeah, I suppose probably the main difference between Northern Ireland and the mainland UK is we're quite a rural country. The majority of our customers would be in rural locations. I know we have Belfast, the big city, which a lot of customers would live in, but the amount of customers we would speak to that say, right, I live up a country lane and my nearest neighbour is a mile down the road.
Mm.
So what we have found is a lot of the time, and it's often quite elderly people that tend to live in these locations too. So it's not as easy as saying, right, your supply's gone off, you've missed the meter reader. Can you go somewhere and make your own arrangements that way? Because they maybe are in the middle of the countryside and they don't have anybody nearby that they can just go and ask for help with. Um, which again is one of the biggest benefits I've seen to have in my team, in place the vulnerable customer team, because a lot of what we find is there are a lot of elderly people living on their own, not even just elderly people, a lot of people living on their own that maybe just they do want to call us to let us know about their query, but a lot of the time they just want to have a conversation,
Mm.
which is really nice. So it's nice that our agents that are in our contact center, they'll do the exact same. They'll happily have a conversation for as long as needed. But sometimes when you need that more specialized, dedicated support,
Mm.
that's what my team then come into play and help out with. So we do see that a lot. Um, we've also introduced it's quite a different tangent I'm going on here, but we've also introduced recently an interpretation service on our phone lines and for our site visitors. Um, we've noticed a lot. Northern Ireland is a very diverse population. We have a lot of customers that call up and English maybe isn't their first language, which we were having to the likes of if a customer calls us and their supplies off, we maybe have to run them through checks. Like, can you go and check your trip switches? Can you go and look at your meter? Which is hard enough to explain to somebody who does speak English as their native language at times. So while we could get there eventually, we thought there has to be a way to make this easier for people. So we brought in an interpretation service called Language Line a couple of months ago. So what they offer is real-time interpretation services in uh, over 100 languages.
Wow.
When a customer calls us and there is that language barrier there, our agents can immediately dial in an interpreter in any language and make that conversation easier. The same with our people that work out on site, whether they be meter readers, way leave officers who are going out to check sites, to put cables down, um, people out to fix meters or fault and emergency engineers. They all have an app on their devices now, so they can again call an interpreter in real time and have a three-way conversation like that using the phone. The people out on site on that same service can also avail of a British Sign Language interpreter. So that makes those conversations easier. And we find that it makes life easier for the customers because they're able to get the information easier. They're not having to listen to us try and explain it when we do sometimes have to use electrical terminology and those types of words if English isn't your first language. I know if I was in a country where I didn't speak the language, I wouldn't be able to understand what was going on in these calls.
No.
Um, and then it also in turn makes it easier for our colleagues because they're able to convey what they need to do. They're able to get the information back that they need. So that has been a really, really beneficial tool as well.
Mm.
And then I suppose the other thing that we're seeing quite a lot recently is people in financial hardship. Now we don't sell electricity here, we're not an electricity supplier, but we still would get a lot of calls specifically out of hours, sort of in the evenings and the weekends when the suppliers are closed, with people saying, I have a keypad meter, I don't get paid till next week and I can't afford to top this up at the minute. While that's not necessarily our role, we can try and offer them the support that we can. So we've recently partnered with Advice NI as well, we now have a referrals portal with them. So if we get customers that call up and they express that they can't afford to pay their bills, they can't afford to top up their keypad meter, instead of us saying, look, we're not your supplier, you need to speak with them when they're open, we can try and offer them the support that we can. If they wish for us to do so, we can take their details and pass them directly on to Advice NI, who will then give them advice on debt, on any grants they might be available to have, any benefits they might be entitled to. So sort of bridging that gap between us and the people that, while they're not calling for something that we deal with, we still want to be able to help them and provide them some sort of support and outcome. So we've started using that quite recently, and it has been seeming to get people the help that they need.
Fantastic, brilliant. And I think, yeah, I mean, whilst we can support within our organisations, it is so important that we have those signposting opportunities. We let customers know, and even I love the fact that you're taking the customer's details and then you're getting in touch with Advice NI. And then, and Advice NI are then calling the customer because it's often overwhelming. If the customer's already overwhelmed, we're then sort of saying, right, you need to go and call
And
Advice
you don't know
NI.
what they ever
And
do. Yeah.
the likelihood of them doing it when they're already overwhelmed is very, very minimal. So I love that fact. Yeah,
It's very
brilliant.
good. Really good
Mm,
portal to have access to.
yeah, absolutely. And so you're seeing similar things to what we're seeing. I mean, the cost of living situation, I think, for many firms just keeps bringing its challenges for so many people, doesn't it? So important that they know where they can go for that support. Definitely the debt advice. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, so I'm not surprised then, with all of that you've achieved over the last few years, that you then have achieved the BSI's kite mark, ISO, 22458 for inclusive service. Yeah, probably won't surprise the listeners that you've achieved that with everything that you've shared today. So, what does that mean for you, that accreditation, and yeah, how has it impacted what you do as a business and the support that you offer?
Yeah, we're incredibly proud to have achieved that. A lot of work did go into it behind the scenes with so many great people across our organization, just getting everything pulled together for the assessment. So it was easier just to show the assessor, look, this is what we do. Um, so we're due our recertification here in March. So we're in the planning stages now of just seeing, right, what else have we done? What can we add to this? And what do we maybe need to take a wee look at again beforehand? And we're really proud to have achieved that. It's such an accreditation to have. And BSI, they're an amazing company. The assessor we had that came out to us, we had two assessors, they were both great, made us feel really at ease throughout the whole process. Sort of became more of a chat than an audit, which was maybe audit's the wrong word, but
Makes life a little bit easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so we're very thankful to see assessors coming back again this March because we know her. We have that relationship now, and it'll be nice to see her again and catch up since it's been a year. Um, the accreditation was great. It was able to sort of put into perspective how much we do so well already. Um, the things that are working really well, and then from the feedback, a few things that we maybe just need to do a few tweaks on, which is always great to get that feedback and that advice.
Mm.
So one of the things that came out of our assessment was to use plain English campaign a wee bit more through our literature that we've put out to the public. So that is something that we have now started doing. Like with the vulnerable customer strategy, the new one, we've run that through plain English before we're going to send that out just to make sure that everything's clear. And again, it was something that we were using before, but maybe not as a standard process with everything that we were doing. So that's something we've been working on as well since that accreditation is making sure that we're using that, making sure our language is clear and just tailoring everything as needs to be now.
Brilliant, brilliant. So yeah, all the best then for the next assessment and
Thank
for the
you
next
very
year
much.
of that. So yeah, I know that you were one of the first companies, organisations in Northern Ireland to achieve that. So it's a huge congratulations on that.
Thank you very much, Helen. Thank
Yeah,
you.
brilliant. So you've covered a lot that you've done sort of over the years. Is there a moment or outcome that really has stayed with you personally, something that you kind of really have taken on board?
Yeah. I think availing of all the training that we have has really put us in a great position. And a massive thank you to you, Helen, because a lot of that training has come directly from yourself.
It's
Um,
been a pleasure
particularly
to work with you all.
we love speaking with you, Helen. Every time your Q&As and all come up now, we're all, oh, great,
Mhm.
let's get on and get chatting to Helen again. Um, no, the training has really left us in a really good position. Especially probably for me, the managing suicidal customer conversations training that you give to us. Um, we because we are an electricity network, we would get a lot of storms and bad weather events over here. Um, last January we were hit by Storm Iowan, which ended up
Mhm.
leaving some customers off supply for up to 10 days. So people were in a really bad position. Um, and we were doing everything we could to restore them as quickly as possible, but there were just so many outages that some people just had to be left off for this length of time. And we did notice as the vulnerable customer team, a lot of people calling in to say, look, I am really struggling here mental health wise. I'm thinking of possibly ending my own life. I just don't know what to do. And I remember in that storm that I had had the training with you already, and it left me in a much more comfortable position within myself to have those conversations and to be confident enough and comfortable enough to do those. Because I remember in previous storms, even before I was in this role, taking those calls and just not knowing what to say to the customer, thinking, am I going to make this worse? Am I going to say the wrong thing? What if the customer ends this call and I don't know what happened? So by having that training with you, it really left me feeling like, right, I just take a moment and compose myself and just have a conversation with this person. Don't worry that the electricity's off. Don't worry that this is an issue that I can't solve. I can't get their supply to come back on straight away, but I can have a conversation with this person for 5, 10 minutes, all they need, and try and signpost them on to support services like the Samaritans. And I really feel a lot more confident in doing those conversations now. And it is all down to asking for help, like I did when I reached out to you to get that training for my team. So thank you very much, Helen. It
Oh
really
no,
did.
you're welcome. No, thank you. And they're such important conversations, aren't they?
Yeah.
You're just a lifeline to them in that moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm so pleased it was. Yeah, that gave you that confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
thank
really did.
you.
Thank you very much,
Oh
Helen.
no,
Thank you.
thank you too. So bringing the podcast to an end there in our discussion, are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share? Anything, top tips or anything you'd like to give the listeners today?
Yeah. I would say go to your customer base when you're working on literature and things. Um, we as organizations, I think we know everything at times, but until you're writing documents or changing a process that's going to impact customers, especially those in vulnerable situations, if you don't ask them, is this going to work for them, you won't know. So that's something that we've really been trying to do, gather feedback. Is this going to work? If we make this change, is that going to have an impact on you? And that's really benefited us. The other tip I would probably say is look after your colleagues because of the likes of the conversations I just mentioned. The colleagues that I have and myself and the wider teams, they can have a lot of stress, they can have a lot of call after call or message after message that are quite distressing or quite difficult. So having those support services within your own organisation to look after them is really crucial, and it's something that NIE Networks do really well. We have an external counsellor that we can use. We have about 140 mental health first aiders. So we're a company that really comes together all the time and look after each other, which is, I think, really crucial. Because if we're not emotionally prepared to take these calls, we're not going to be much help to the customers that need us on the other end. So those would probably be my two key takeaways from what I've learned.
Brilliant. You're absolutely right. You're looking after ourselves, looking after our colleagues is absolutely crucial. Yeah, calls with customers are so different nowadays than they used to be. So a lot more emotive, a lot more information is shared. So yeah, you're right to look after your team members. That's brilliant. So some great thoughts to finish with. So thank you so much, Natasha. Thank you so much for being my guest today. It's been brilliant to have you on and to share your thoughts around vulnerability in the energy sector and in Northern Ireland.
Yes, no, thank you very much for having me, Helen, and thanks for everything you've helped us with over the last few years.
Oh, you're really welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Unlocking Vulnerability. If today's conversation has resonated with you, please feel free to share it with others who may find it useful. You'll find more episodes like this by searching Unlocking Vulnerability wherever you listen to podcasts. If this episode has left you with questions about any aspect of consumer vulnerability, I regularly host free Q&A sessions on Zoom where you're welcome to join the conversation. You can find out more at helenpettifer.com. Thank you for listening and please take care.